what were your statistics when you had applied to Darden, as in what was your GMAT score, your undergraduate GPA? And also, how do the other master's degrees, like there are a lot of options, for new graduates, like the master's in management and stuff. How do they compare to an MBA, from the financial perspective and the learning perspective, as well as the job market? And also if it is the right time exactly because of the entire pandemic and stuff, for a person or for a recent graduate to think about going outside or pursuing a degree as such.
Yeah, that's a lot of questions, but I'm going to try and do it one by one. So starting off with my profile or statistics. So all of these top schools look for the range of GMATs within 710 to 740. But remember, Indian applicants are really good at test taking, right? We are the kids who, I don't know, crack CAT with like 99, all of that. So the average GMAT for Indian students is much higher. So you need to at least have like a 740 plus for some of these top schools, right? So I would say it's good to have that. It's not a deal breaker. Like if you don't have it, doesn't mean you're not going to get in. I had a 720, which was right in the range, which obviously isn't a 750 or a 760. People at Darden, my classmates had 770, 780. It's crazy. And some kids just keep working at it and they only get the GMAT score, right? But like I said, the beauty of a business school application is that it's a holistic application. It's not going to be based just on your GMAT score. Yes, they want to know you're someone who's quantitative. Yes, they want to know you're someone who's rigorous. And I think a 700 plus is good. Like it's not great, but it's a decent score. But I would rather focus on other parts of your application as well, right? Because if you're just getting a 770 and have a blah 9 to 5 job with an IT company for 5 years and no extracurriculars and not someone who's interesting, not someone who's passionate about interests outside of work, you're probably not going to get in anywhere, leave alone into the top 10, right? And that is 100% true. Because schools want to invest in students who are interesting in the classroom. They want students who will be able to contribute in a classroom, right? If you're just someone who studied 24 hours for GMAT and cracked it, that's all you have to talk about, right? What else sticks you? What else motivates you? Who are you as a person? What problems keep you up at night? What do you want to solve in this world? Like whatever, right? So I would say in terms of stats, yes, GMAT, that's around the range. Undergrad, I would say, fortunately or unfortunately, top grades are a non-negotiable. Like you have to have top grades. You have to be in the top 5% in your class. Luckily, I was that in engineering, so that worked out. Good grades in 10th and 12th don't really matter, but obviously IIT undergrad branding is helpful, but AIT is also good. I got in with AIT, so and there's a lot of other AIT students who did graduate from top business schools. So I really think it's a good branding, and you should play up the point that you were the top 240 students who were chosen out of the entire country, and in that whole army category. So I would try and highlight that. So yeah, in terms of statistics, that's what I would say. Those are my 2 cents, right? Again, having said that, I know people who've gotten to HBS with a 660, but their profile was stellar. There were people who had done a startup, who had, in solar energy in a village in India and sold it to like a bigger solar company. So there you go, right? I mean, they are already the business gurus that you should learn from. I don't care that you have a 660 GMAT. So yeah, it's a lot of different things, but the good thing is that it's a holistic profile. You have so many things in your control, not just the GMAT score, right? Versus when you look at some of the business schools in India, unfortunately, they give too much emphasis on just your score, right? Or even for that matter, engineering. I feel like engineering should be a more holistic application process as well. You give one exam and that determines the rest of your life. Like how unfair is that, right? And yet people who don't go to IIT do end up doing a lot of cool things. It's the same thing with business school as well, but luckily it's more holistic. MBA is a degree that you should do, especially in the US and UK. US at least needs 4 to 5 years of work experience, because below that, they just don't believe that a student has had enough business work experience to be a good contributor in the classroom. In Europe, it's much higher. So for example, if you're looking at an INSEAD or um, LSE or London
MBA.
Business School, these are usually 6 or 7 years. You need to have much more work experience. There are other degrees nowadays, like you rightly mentioned, the MIM, which is the Masters in Management program, which doesn't need too much work experience. But at the same time, these degrees are very basic, right? So they will teach you initial, like very basic financial skills, very basic marketing, sales. They'll give you a holistic sort of degree, but at a very basic level, which will help you get entry level jobs into business, like maybe in business analysts, as a business analyst, right? Um, but again, you're learning with students who don't have any other background in business either, right? So it's almost like you're all learning together. It's much cheaper than an MBA. So for example, MBAs from top schools are typically again, all of this information is available on websites and things like that, but it usually runs between the range of like 150K, right, for 2 years. And MIMs are much lower. It's half the price almost.
Yeah, around 84,000.
Yeah, exactly. But then at the same time, um, the kind of jobs you get after a proper business degree is just like there's no ceiling, right? If you're an investment banker, you can make crazy plus bonus plus whatever, and consulting is very similar, right? So that's what I would keep in mind. If you're someone who just wants to right away get into business and for some reason didn't do an undergrad in business and ended up doing engineering, then I would say maybe starting off with an MIM um, might be an okay idea. But then also at the same time, I feel like if you were so sure about doing business, like why didn't you just do an undergrad in business degree, right? Because MIMs do have a ceiling in what like in terms of your career growth after a while. Um, but it's also a very sought after degree. A lot of European schools started this, and so now US schools are catching well, which means that it's soon going to become very popular because of like the low price and all of that. Students might take that up as well. But in my opinion, I don't know if I see that much value now in an MIM, unless you're just someone who knows for sure I don't want to work in anything else except for business, and so let me get an MIM degree and just work in business.
Right. So is it recommended that you do an MIM if because you're a recent grad who probably just wants to start earning more at a certain age and also wants the tag, that comes with doing a master's from a really good school, because most of the schools that actually give this degree to you, provide this degree, are top schools, like Duke, Cornell. So
Yeah.
is it worth the price?
Yeah, I would say if you're someone who's 100% sure that business is right for you at the age of 22, like if you know for sure that's what you want to do for the rest of your life, yeah, go ahead. Like I feel like if you're already sure you want to work in that realm, it's much cheaper. It's getting more popular. It is a degree that is getting more popular. But also remember that you might not get the full value of that course from a peer group standpoint, right? You're not going to be studying with students who have extensive business background, including yourself. I feel like learning about business after you've worked for 4 to 5 years is extremely valuable, because think about MBA as like swimming or cycling, right? I mean, you can read all about it, you can theoretically know everything about it, but unless you get into the pool or unless you get on a bike, you just don't know how to swim or cycle, right? So it's really that, like it's the same thing as with business. Unless you've done a little bit of business or you know what business problems there are, how does it work in the real world, how do companies think about sales, or how does company have a marketing strategy, and you've worked in those things, you can't contribute effectively in a classroom. So yeah, it's those trade-offs, right? You need to figure out what works better for you.
Right.
So, ma'am, most of us, as you know, most of us will be in IT companies right out of college. So, there are people who know that they want to go for an MBA, not now, but maybe after 3 or 4 years. So, what few experiences do you think, apart from their job, which would help in their MBA? And having experienced life at Darden, uh, what other experience do you think would really help people in their MBA?
Yeah, so I'd go back to some of the things that I said earlier, right? Of course, have a 9 to 5 job. Again, I'm also someone who completely believes in building that professional skill set early on because it really holds you in good stead for the rest of your life. But then also think deeply about who you are as a person, what interests you, what passions do you have. Start from there, right? All right, you have a 9 to 5 job in IT, but were you someone who was really good at basketball in college, right? Can you continue somehow being, say, part of that IT team's basketball league? Can you join a local league with basketball? Can you start coaching someone in basketball, right? How do you take your passions and take it to the next level? And that's not going to be driven by the fact that you want to apply to business school. That's going to be driven by the fact that you're actually interested in it, right? And you're going to spend those 2 to 3 hours every weekend, or 4 hours a week doing it actually, right? Another example is you're someone who is really excited about, yes, coding, but also understanding how business offer, like how do products actually go to market, right? Yes, you've built a great engineering product, but what is the addressable market? Who are the people who are going to use it? Who's the potential user of this product? What is the demographic? Who are the people? How would you price this product? Is it a subscription model? Is it a flat out price? All of those things, if you're interested in something like that, start doing courses that teach you how to do that, right? You don't need to go to business school to start doing that already. And even within work, think about ways in which you can get onto the business side somehow, right? I mean, maybe work with more product engineers, maybe work with more product managers, sorry. um, and again, this is only something if you're interested in kind of finding that cusp of technology and business, right? If you love coding, great, just keep doing it. Do an MS from some of the top universities in artificial intelligence, machine learning, whatever it is, right? And that'll just take you further as an individual contributor in that career. But if you want to be a team player, a manager, a people manager, a leader, an MBA degree is going to get you there, right? The very fact that you can write the best code in the world is probably not going to make you the CEO of a tech company, right? You need the skill set that is required to be a CEO of a company is much more broad than just the fact that you're the best coder in the world, right? You need to be someone who's building influence across all businesses of the company. You need to gain trust of the consumers. You need to understand how sales works. You need to understand what is your debt to equity ratio in the company, all of that, right? What is your marketing strategy going to be? That's what a business degree is going to help you get. And so early on before, like as soon as you graduate and in your work, start exploring and start experimenting with those things and see what you like and whether the business degree is really the right way for you.
Right. So, ma'am, usually what they say is that if you do a global MBA, the chances of you coming back to India are really less. So, is it true? I mean, let's suppose a person really, really wants to go to a global B school, but then wants to directly come back to India. Is it advisable that, he pursues this degree?
Did you go to US? Uh, what was going on then in your mind? Were you like predetermined to settle there in US, or did it happen after that?
Yeah.
So that's a good question. And for like just throwing it out there, nothing in my life is predetermined for more than a year. Like I never plan it more than, okay, like yes, I kind of have a vague idea of what I might be doing 10 years from now, maybe, right? But like I said, I didn't know 10 years back that this is what I was going to do 10 years from now. So I'd rather just leave it to surprise. But talking more practically, no, I did not come to the US to settle down here, despite the fact that I'm being Andhraite. I have like a lot of my family here. I'm currently living with my grandparents who are citizens here, my uncle and aunt. Everyone kind of lives here, except for my dad who was in the Indian Army. So my family is in India. But having said that, I did want to get the global experience, right? Because I feel like we live in a global world. We are working on problems which are global in nature. They are not, be it in the business world, be it in the social impact world, be it in the technology space. You need to have a global outlook. You can't be someone, I mean, you can be, but it's probably not valuable to be someone who's just siloed in one region of the world or specifically doing just one thing, which is why I keep coming back to this whole art of being a generalist, right? Experimenting a lot with multiple industries, multiple business problems, multiple functional areas. And so for me, the US thing was just like to get that global experience. And honestly, an MBA degree in the US, like I said, is probably worth it if you work here for at least 3 to 4 years, or if not more, from a very basic return on investment equation perspective, right? Because it's only after a couple of years that you realize that you're able to pay back your loan, unless of course you have a scholarship, which I had a part of, but it's very rare in business school, right? It really depends on your profile and just everything else that you get scholarships. But so yeah, like you need to be prepared to, I mean, in general, I think the rule is do an MBA from a region of the world that you see yourself in for the next at least 4 to 5 years, period, right? If you're someone who wants to live in India, get an MBA degree from the best school in India. If you're someone who wants to settle down in Singapore, go to NUS. If you're someone who thinks that the US is too harsh on immigration right now and wants to work in Europe, go to LSE and LBS or INSEAD, right? And it is the truth that the US is getting more and more stringent on F1 laws and immigration in general. It is a pretty harsh sort of environment to be in, because these are very restricting factors in your career, right? If you're tied to a company with an H-1B visa, you need to work with that company. You need to keep working to have that H-1B visa. Otherwise, you can't work in the US. You'll be deported in 2 months. If you're a student on an F1 visa, and right now the issue is, in the past week, if say Harvard University is going online completely, that F1 gets canceled, right? So you're hearing about all of this stuff. Now, I don't know if things are going to be the same next year or they'll be completely different. In November, with the elections, if it's going to be a Democratic government in November, everything could completely change, right? It could be the most immigration friendly country in the world. So yeah, there's a lot of factors to consider, but in general, the thumb rule is do an MBA from the region of the world that you see yourself working in. Don't just get a US MBA if you want to work in India, unless of course you have like all that money to throw away, and you have the kind of resources, and some students do have those kind of resources. I had students at Darden from really wealthy business families who just came for the 2 years, did their MBA, paid for it, down payment, and went back and are in their family businesses, right? Which they can afford to do it. But unfortunately for me, it just wasn't the case. I mean, our dads are in the Indian Army and we all kind of work our way through everything, right? So that would be my 2 cents on US, why the US experience was helpful for me. And I am someone who, the kind of work that I want to do in social impact is going to be in the emerging markets, 100%, right? So for me, India is the place that I see myself long term.
Right.
And the way the things look like right now, that might be pretty soon. I might be back pretty soon, sooner than we think. So.
Okay, so ma'am, your experience as a strategy consultant with BCG and Parentheon on UI.
Yep.
And apart from that, a lot of other industries you have been part of. Can you just talk a little more about that?
Sure. So strategy consulting, again, was one of those things that I absolutely realized early on. This was around the time Teach for India, and I was thinking about business school, was one of those like careers that gives you an immediate boot camp sort of experience to learn everything there is about the business world, right? In the shortest possible time. So companies like McKinsey, BCG, Bain, they provide strategy consulting services to the top 100 Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies in the world, right? And it is really a training ground in thinking about a business problem in the most complex business problem, and then putting your brains behind how to put a framework to solve it. That's it. That's literally what it is, right? So at business school, very early on, I realized that I needed to crack a consulting interview job to be able to pay back my loans, because from a very practical standpoint, and also really gain that business skill set, because the exit opportunities after consulting are just endless, right? The fact that you have worked, so for example, at BCG, I worked on a couple of social impact cases, one with the World Economic Forum on their 21st century skills report, or another one was with a major oil and gas company in the US. I can't take the name of it, obviously, but in figuring out how they can reduce their drilling costs for fracking, right? So it's really all over the place. And for someone like me who has such varied interests, and generally kids from army backgrounds, because their attention spans are just really low. That's what I've noticed, unless of course you're someone who's really focused. To keep things interesting and to just be someone who's a generalist, consulting gigs are fantastic. Like, consulting companies are the best way. And a lot of AIT students have worked in consulting firms, and they'll say the same thing, right? If you speak with them, because that's literally what I realized I was learning. The fact that I could look at multiple industries. One week I was working on an oil and gas case. The other week I was working on an education case. The third week I was on a consumer e-commerce case for skincare. The fourth week I was working on a healthcare product for the US states in, which have Medicare, Medicaid. It's crazy, but at the same time, it starts building the skill set of looking at patterns, like pattern recognition of what works in a certain industry and how you can apply that to some other industry, right? It just helps you build these frameworks, these mental models, and just brings a lot of experience overall across different functional areas. So not just say in finance, but also in go-to-market strategy. How do you launch a product that is highly US centric into the emerging markets? How do you customize it to an Indian market versus a Chinese market? Or it could be about cost efficiency. We're in a recession right now. How all companies are thinking about hiring consulting firms to figure out how do they reduce their headcount, how are they trimming the fat from their balance sheets. So being a generalist at a consultant of suitcases, but at the same time you're working 16-hour days to be able to provide that value to your clients. So consulting is intense, but I would also highly recommend it to anyone who wants to gain that skill set, especially engineers, because we have a very quantitative STEM background and not necessarily the business skill sets that are required to be effective business leaders, I would say. So consulting provides that. If you're interested in business and business school, consulting is a great route to get there. So yeah, and I think for me, I've eventually started specializing in education technology and education and social impact projects with both BCG and Parthenon. And that's where I am today with an education technology company in their go-to-market strategy and sales strategy realm.
Okay, so ma'am, we know that you have a podcast called Life of a Global Desi, and it has more than 4,000 viewers monthly as of now. And we listen to that, and it is very exciting to see people, someone like you, start that. Can you just brief us about what led to that, and why did you start it in the first place?
Absolutely. I think it's so as you can imagine, I'm generally someone who, like I said very clearly, just a complete all over the place person in general and have varied interests. So the podcasting bit also started just like that. When I moved to the US, commutes are pretty long here. You're often on flights, you're often traveling on the train to get to work, or you're driving. And so podcasts were a great way for me to just get connected with the world. There's so many podcasts there about business, relationships, cooking, what have you, right? And so for me, I started listening to podcasts, and then I soon realized that it's a great medium to share ideas, right? I think a lot of kids from AIT are so creative, especially because of all the travel experience that they've had, the fact that they have so many stories to tell, and just want to share that. I think that was one of the reasons that drove me to be creative as well in that space. And so with Life of a Global Desi, there's so many people like us who are Indian born, lived in India for a long time, or have Indian origin roots, but are scattered all over the world, right? In so many parts of the world. And the idea of what is Indian anymore is really broad. You can't just say if you wear a certain type of clothing, you're Indian, or if you eat a certain type of food, you're Indian, or if you talk talk in a certain language, you're Indian. What is Indian is, really varied. And I think the term global desi kind of captured that. So my sister and I, who's 4 years younger, also obviously an army kid, didn't go to AIT, but she did a lot of other interesting things. She also works in education. She came a couple of years back to Boston to study at Harvard, and she did her graduate school in education. So she and I decided that all the things that we are doing as global desis, why not build a community of other global desis? So what we do on this podcast is really invite other global desis who are doing some really cool stuff, living life in unconventional ways beyond just, oh, I need to, do engineering and do this, do that, but then really pushing the boundaries on what it means to be a millennial. We have such people on the Global Desi podcast, and yeah, where we just started it. Actually, it's been February, and it's been overwhelming to see so many listens, and people are so interested in the topics that we talk about, because I think we all think about these topics like racism, or what does it mean to be an immigrant, or what is the student life like in the US, but no one really talks about it openly, right? So for my sister Aarti and I, this was just one of the ways in which we wanted to put our ideas out there, right? And we consume so much nowadays. We consume Netflix, we consume social media, but what are we creating, right? So for me, I think that was the big question that drove it. So I just wanted to be someone who also wanted to create and put my ideas out there for what it's worth, right? And so that's why the Global Desi podcast. And yeah, it's been going good, and hopefully we'll get more and more interesting guests, and in a lot of ways help kind of open up a dialogue on topics that are very hard to talk about in Desi communities, right? Like marriage, like dating, like colorism, like so many topics, right? Or racism, and have an open dialogue about it, because gone are the times when these were taboo topics and people just didn't talk about it. So yeah, that's what Life of a Global Desi is about.
Okay, so ma'am, you talked about creativity. There are so many people out there who like to sketch or who like to
Yeah.
dance, or there's so many creative pursuits over there. Uh, like the one you you pursue, like you have started your own podcast. You also have this life on a post-it thing, a very cartoon, and you share so many life lessons on it. So one, what advice do you give to people who are creative or people who want to be creative? And second, just tell us more about the life on a post-it and the life lessons you share there.
Absolutely. So I love that you brought up creativity, because some people do ask me this, tell me this sometimes, oh, you're so creative, you're so you draw, you write, whatever. But my only refute to them is everyone's creative. You're creative, I'm creative, everyone's creative, because it's already in you. All you have to do is explore it and figure out a channel or a way in which you can kind of unleash it to the world, right? Because like I was alluding to earlier, we're all just on this trip of consuming so much content. It's all about, oh, look at how many shows I've watched. I'm on social media all the time. I read so many books. But I think it all came down to, okay, you've done that. You watched something, you listened to something, you read something, but what do you think about it, right? Analyzing it, synthesizing it, and eventually like creating your own ideas. But also more importantly, putting it out in the world, because unless you share your ideas, unless you get feedback on it, or a dialogue opens up about it, what's the point of just consuming so much content? So I think what the writing, the blogging, and again, these are things I started long back. Again, I've been doing this since 2000, 11 almost now, 11, 10. I've had a blog since then. I've been drawing on post-its since then. And again, I don't do this because someone pays me to do it, um, or someone's like put a gun to my head saying you have to draw or you have to write. I just do it because I like doing it, and it just keeps me occupied. It keeps me thinking. It keeps me engaged beyond just my work, my day-to-day job. But I think more importantly, it helps me just be creatively fulfilled, right? So you might first, so to people who want to be creative, I guess the only advice I would have is just start somewhere. If you like drawing, do a 100-day drawing challenge. Draw every day for 100 days. If you are into fitness, do a push-up challenge. Like, tape yourself doing a push-up every day, and you'll get better at it, right? And you just have to keep at it. And I think the key word there is creativity, but also consistency, because with consistency, I think comes competence and excellence. Like, you'll get better at it. It's just the muscle that you have to keep practicing, right? So for me, I think writing, drawing, even the podcasting, for to some extent, is also really about that. And you might first start copying someone you like, but then you get inspired by them, and then eventually you'll find your own style, and you'll find your like authentic voice. And what better time to start now? Everything you want to ever do is on the internet. You want to paint, open a YouTube video about it. You want to do a certain type of craft, like go and check it out on YouTube, put it up on Instagram. That's all. Like, everyone's being so creative, right? um so yeah, that would be my only advice. Like, start right away.
We'd just like to know if you have any advice, because we personally are in kind of the same situation as your batch was in the time of recession, and similarly with us.
Yeah.
So is there any advice you'd like to give out to recent grads or students who would be graduating next year?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing I would say is, um, don't worry, like, don't worry about the recession. Don't worry about like life and jobs and all of it. I also used to be someone who used to worry a lot, but I've become much more calm about it, because things work out, just because you didn't get into the company that you wanted, or didn't get the exact profile of job that you wanted, or maybe the company that gave you an offer rescinded it because of the recession. It's fine. Like, things work out. You're all smart people. Like, every person who goes to AIT is inherently hardworking, smart, really creative, and jugadu, I guess, right? That's the word. Just like super at it. So I think everyone figures a way out. In fact, even people in my batch who used to be, who people would think that, oh my God, what is this person going to ever do, is doing so well, right? It really doesn't matter, right? And so first thing I would say is, don't worry at all, right? Just work with the opportunities you have right now. And if you don't have them, build them. Like, just create opportunities for yourself. Um, like I said, do different types of courses online. Everything is free right now. The top universities are opening up their courses. If you feel like you have 3 months off from work, or you don't have a job, build a skill set. If you have a hobby, build on it. uh, you know yeah, I would say things like that. But then also, more importantly, I would go back to this idea of just keep experimenting, right? I mean, I think that's what I'm trying to say with that. Just keep prototyping, keep experimenting. um, but I think the one thing, when I look back at this time, like 22, when you're graduating, I would say build and nurture those like deep friendships that you've built at AIT, right? Because they're the ones who keep you grounded in times that are both like good and bad, but also like lift you up when things go really south. Because I think AIT, AITians, army school friends, they were really the rock, like my rock during Teach for India, or when life in the US was hard, like when, or, just otherwise, even today, like they are the closest friends that I've had. Because the people who, when you're 16 through 22 or 23, they're the ones who really know the real you, the messy you, the you with all its complications, all its insecurities, the person who you were when you were young, before you started kind of building these defense mechanisms that you build for the world or the corporate world, how to behave, how to be a woman in the corporate world, or how to be tough or aggressive, and all of that, right? So I think you can be all of those, yes, but also just focus on like building those relationships with your friends now, especially since you have all the time, right? And it can be a confusing time after AIT where everyone was together and suddenly you're all kind of moving away, doing your own thing. So yeah, keep up those relationships, and that'll definitely keep you grounded. You know, and obviously, you know, going back to that whole idea of if you have any inkling or gut feeling of what you might be interested in, just keep building on it, right? You don't have to, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you don't have to start a company tomorrow and sell it, right? You have to start small, start talking to entrepreneurs, start going to conferences online which are being conducted. There's so many organizations which do that. Or, you know, start building a small product and then launch it on the app store to see how it does. So yeah, there's just a lot of ways in which you can keep experimenting. But just, you know, saying that I have an idea but I'm not doing anything about it, that's never helpful, right? Just keep doing something, I guess.
Right. So this is one question, ma'am, we ask all of our guests. Is there something you feel, AIT per se is like lacking in, or things, we could improve upon, the students as well as, the administration, just everyone?
Um, Honestly, I think the only thing that I can think about is it took me 10 years or 12 years to connect back with you guys and, you know, share my experience as an alumni of AIT. And I think that's something that we can really improve upon. I talk to a lot of other AITians, and again, like I said, that's really my core group of friends, including my army school friends. And I always keep talking about why are we not like other prestigious or elite schools like IIT or, you know, Harvard or any of these, where we have the chops for it. We have the students who are really talented and hardworking, but we just don't have that rich alumni network. Um, I don't know. I feel like it takes time to build a brand. It takes time to build recognition in the workplace for your undergrad school. And I think it's not the school, the onus entirely is not on just the school or just the students who are in the school currently, but I think the onus is also on alumni partly to be able to provide that sort of support or like leverage to, you know, to build that brand. So for example, when I was working at BCG US, I reached out to someone in BCG India to be like, hey, you know, I'm an AIT grad, like why don't you go and like, AIT is a great college, there's a lot of smart kids there, why don't we go there for internships, or why don't we recruit there? And the response was that these companies are just, you know, so myopic, they cannot look beyond like the top names that they know. But I think, but then you need to try, you need to keep pushing forward and trying, right? So there were more people at BCG, some of my seniors who then tried again. And so you just have to keep trying to build that brand and be able to build influence within the corporate world within your power, but then um, also in a way, you know, give back to the undergrad college that you went to. Because if the undergrad college that you went to gets more prestigious and, you know, gets more networks and gets more students are doing better, you do better because you're part of that network, right? So to your question, I don't know if there's something that you guys or the AIT can do, but I think as a community and as alumni, there's a lot more we can do. And things like this help, right? The fact that you guys took the initiative to start something like AIT Talks really just opened up. When I looked at it on Facebook, I was like, oh, this is such a cool idea. Why don't we do more of this? There's so many cool AITians. There's such cool stuff they're doing. I can rattle off 20 names of people you must talk to because they are either photographers or they are wedding planners or they are, you know, doing really interesting things. They've started a company, and I'm sure you know a lot of these people already. But yeah, or are filmmakers. I know so many people who've done that, or are script writers. So I think these kind of platforms do help. But I think also very basically, there should probably be like an AIT alumni CRM sort of platform where, you know, like everyone kind of puts in their information. And if you want to look up an alumni, you should be able to do that. And obviously that takes some investment in terms of technology infrastructure and upkeep of that as well. I don't know, is there something like that, or is there like an Excel sheet? I don't know.
There is an Excel sheet, ma'am, like to be honest, because we refer to that every time, we reach out to alumni for
Got
the
it.
alumni meet. But
Got
then
it.
again, the addresses are not updated, neither are the phone numbers. So, we don't tend
Yeah.
to reach out to everybody. Also, that information is not available to everybody per se, just
Yeah.
to a couple of people. So, do you think like LinkedIn would be a good place to do that? Because, when we asked other people this, they said a lot of the alumni are not on Facebook. So, any
Yep,
suggestions?
I think that's yeah, I absolutely agree. I think LinkedIn is more and more becoming a popular alternative for, people keeping in touch on social media, at least in a professional setting. So I think LinkedIn is great. Honestly, I haven't looked at the AIT LinkedIn group. My bad. I probably should. But if you guys get more active on that, and we all get more active on that, and just share all of this information and the fact that you guys are doing something like this and get more people involved. Because at the end of the day, any movement kind of takes the ball rolling. Like you have to set the ball rolling, right? And then it gains steam. You tell one person, you'll talk to 20 other people. Now I'll tell everyone about AIT talks, right? And everyone in my batch. Um, and hopefully then it's a network effect at the end of the day. So hopefully that'll set off. And I really hope we're able to kind of build that level of brand for AIT, which I think it already is, right? We're on the right path. Is just kind of doubling down all the efforts and all alumni efforts to be able to do that. So yeah. I think two things there, right? One is absolutely right. The more people you talk to, I mean, that's the advice again I'll add. Just talk to as many people as you can. Like, don't be open about your options. Talk to alumni, talk to people on LinkedIn, send out, like I used to send out 100 cold call messages on LinkedIn saying, hey, I'm excited to talk to you about this particular aspect of management consulting or whatever. And some people may respond, some people may not. But for what it's worth, you would have at least tried and, you'd get a new perspective. Yeah, talk to as many people. That will really help you like see what your options are and what you're excited about. And the other thing you said there about looking at people in positions that you want to be in or doing things that you want to do is very, very exciting, right? And it's very inspiring
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
even for me, I feel like when I am at these workplaces, and there are people who I've worked with or studied with in the US, and all of these kids have gone to like Ivy League schools. They've been to Harvard and all of that, and I'm just like, wait, I mean, they're not extraordinary. They're just normal people like you and me, right? It's just the level of access that they've had early on in their life, and information, awareness, and exposure. That's really all it comes down to. And the right mentors and right guides who tell them how to get there. That's it, right? They're not like extraordinarily like super smart or anything. Like they're really people with good intelligence, like basic intelligence and basic EQ, all of that. Like it's not rocket science really, unless it is rocket science, right? So for me, when you see someone in that being at the same place with someone like an army background or relatable, or even for me, like when I see women at the executive level on the team, I'm like, oh, okay, that's exciting to see someone at the top. That means I can get there too,
Yeah.
versus when you
Perfect.
see like a all white male board of directors or ET, and I'm like, oh man, I can never do that. Like there's no way I can be a CEO, which is why an Indra Nui is exciting, because you're like, man, she's from India. She is, South Indian. She was the CEO of PepsiCo. Like, it's like, okay, so it's possible, right? And so I think what you're talking about is a very real psychological barrier that we all feel. So yeah, I think, which is why it becomes all the more important to reach out to people who are in those, who have had a similar journey, and then you kind of figure out how to do it yourself, and
And ma'am,
just keep
you
at it.
talked about, sorry for interrupting, you talked about mentors. Can you just, I mean, at this point of time, I think we need mentors in so many different phases of our life,
Yeah.
uh, so many different fields of our life. I mean, right from profession to health and everything. So, just if you can tell us how to choose mentors or how to decide right mentors.
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I think probably one of the most important ones you asked me, because everything else that we just spoke about can be distilled to the kind of guidance and the mentorship and the people that can guide you in the right direction, right? So for me personally, I think of mentors in my life as my personal like board of advisors, right? And again, I have professional mentors, I have personal mentors, I have mentors for my creative pursuits, I have mentors for my I don't know, I mean, all aspects of life, right? And it's again a lot like you can't be very mechanical about choosing mentors. You can't look at a person and say, go up to them and say, hey, can you be my mentor? No, that's not how it works. It takes a lot more organic sort of relationship building than that, right? So for example, like me, right? I mean, we are speaking now, right? We did this 2 hours of chatting. We stay in touch. We reach out to each other about, I reach out with some idea, you guys reach out with some question, we brainstorm, and eventually it's a relationship that builds over time, right? And when it's required or when the time comes, you actually then reach out to the person about, hey, like, I really am struggling with this issue in my life, or I'm really struggling with this particular point of my essay for my business school. Can you just look through it? Can you help me with, one thing? And I'm happy to, do it. And because of the relationship that we've had, I'm more invested in your success as a mentor, right? Because with your success, my, like the fact that I've invested and advocated for you, um, helps me propel that relationship further, right? And that's how I've chosen my mentors, or that they've chosen me, or we have mutually chosen each other, right? So for example, this person that I spoke about, right? When we started Mentor Me India, funny, what a pun, like Mentor Me India mentor. The 24-year-old who started it, and I was also 24 at that time. She, although she was my peer, she became someone, we had such a great connection. We cared about the same things in life. We cared about mentorship, guidance, and starting social entrepreneurship. Like till date, she's someone who I reach out to on, questions that I might have, or issues that I'm struggling with at work, or say there was this VP at work who was in the marketing space, and she happened to be a woman. She's a great mentor, but I've also had male mentors, right? It doesn't mean that you only need to be of the same gender or the same background. You could be completely different backgrounds, right? This VP was as different from me as it can get. She born and brought up in the US, Caucasian, or went to an Ivy League school, and married with 3 children. But she was a great mentor because I could completely, she was my boss, but then at the same time, she was invested in me and my success. And that's how our relationship started. And still date, she's someone I reach out to. I'm not even working at that company anymore, right? So that's how you build relationships. And again, don't force it, and don't pressure someone to be your mentor. Like, you'll know when people are invested in your success, and all you have to do is on your side be genuine, reach out, and try to make it a two-way relationship. It can't always be just, what can I get from this person, right? It's about, how can I help this person, and how can we build a relationship, and then eventually it's a relationship both meaningful for both parties. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, we got you completely. Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, and mentors are great. Like, mentors are, like I said, I think if there's one thing anyone takes away from this like whole conversation we've had, is like, definitely find people in your life who are your advocates, right? Obviously your parents are already your advocates, your partners, everyone else is already your advocates, your friends are, but mentors, that relationship is just very different. It's slightly more formal, but also at the same time informal. It's hard to describe, but you'll know when you have that, people who are advocating for you and your success. Yeah, and the second thing would be just prototype the hell out of your life. Try different things.
Right. Okay. So I'm on your U.S. National Parks mission. I was just curious to know whether you have so far you have visited Yosemite National Park or not, because
Yes, I
I'm
have.
just so much fascinated by this long stone. I mean, the
Yeah,
granite
the
walls.
monolith. Yeah. It's incredible, right? I'm so happy you brought that up, because I feel like people, when they come to the US, they get enamored by obviously the advancement of it, and just, sometimes the big cities like New York, or obviously all the opportunities. But for me, the thing that I fell in love with were the national parks, like just the nature and just the ruggedness of the great American outdoors, I think. And I think that's also a lot to do with the army background, because we've all lived in really rough places. Like we've lived in Rajasthan or the rainforests in Assam, or, the mountains, obviously Kashmir, all of that. So the US I felt like I found home in the national parks, and it just became a mission, right? There are 61 national parks in the US, and every weekend till we could travel, or every other weekend, my husband Nikhil and we would love taking road trips. And the road systems are fantastic here. You just, take your car out and drive for thousands of miles without even knowing. I've also done some solo road trips. And yes, Yosemite has been great. We actually visited there last year. We were in Alaska also last year, where there are 6 national parks. So you can kind of like visit a lot of them together. So yeah, the US National Parks mission is just this travel bug that army kids have in general. So I think that's just the manifestation of that fact for me. And obviously what started off as, oh, it's cool, let's go one weekend. I was like, hey, there's 61, why not complete all of them? I'm at number 37 right now. I don't know if I'll complete all 61 before I come back to India, but I'll try, and hopefully in my lifetime I might. So we'll see. But it's a fun challenge and a fun mission to have. So I do like kind of gamifying every aspect of my interest as well, because it keeps you motivated, right? You know how games can be addicting. So this is one of those things for me.
Okay, so I know that we are so far we are out of time. I mean, it's a
I know, I
lot
can't
more
believe it's been
to
2 hours since we've chatted. So
yeah.
much fun.
So one, this is more of a personal question. I mean, talking about big things, it's really we just miss out the small things, and I think what people who get over, I mean, who are highly successful and in all stages of the life, I think it boils down to the small things they do in a good way. I mean, so this is a question I wanted to ask. I mean, I asked this to all of the people I talk to. So tell us something about the habits and routines. I mean, what you do in your everyday life, and how has it changed over the years, and what are some things what you have figured out, like uh, to include in your daily routine. Like it helps a lot. I mean, just tell us the progression, how it changed over the years, and what you think is important.
That's actually a great question. And I think all of us have read, like exactly like you've said, read these books about, 10 things highly successful people do, 10 things they do before 6 a.m. Um, I've also read all of that stuff. And honestly, it's great to know and try all of those things. For all my life, I've tried to be someone who wakes up really early, but I'm not the person who wakes up really early, right? I'm the most groggy person early in the morning. There's a reason this call is in the afternoon and not in the morning. So I'm just not that person who wakes up at 4:30 or 5:30 and does like 10 things before their first coffee. And I've given up on that, right? I've tried for 3 years setting an alarm. I'll just do it, and I'll just snooze it 10 to 20 times, and I'll just continue to sleep. So but there are also things that I want to do. I want to be fit. I want to work out. I want to pursue my creative pursuits, all of that. So how do I kind of mesh all of that, right? So the way I figured it out is, okay, I'm not going to wake up at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. Maybe someday I will, I don't know, but I'm still going to do it every day, right? So then I work out in the evening, right? After work. I do my yoga in the evening, and I write and doodle and draw for at least 2 to 3 hours after dinner, right? Even if it's late in the night, if it's while I'm chatting
And
with someone.
is it every day, ma'am? Is it every day? Like every day you doodle or write for 2 or 3 hours?
I wouldn't say it's every day, but sometimes, yeah, it is every day. If you have a passion, you have to do it consistently, which is why I keep going back to it, right? You only get you build that level of interest if you do it every day or consistently. At least you don't have to say that every day, at least, like, consistently. And consistently can be defined by you. And the other thing you start seeing is, the more consistent you are, the better you get at it. So it's a vicious cycle, right? Or a creative cycle, right? You see that you're getting better at it, you get more inspired, so you spend more time on it, and then you're like, oh wow, this is really fun. And then you just kind of like, I mean, that's what I guess training is, or that's how you get better at playing an instrument or get great at tennis or whatever. It's just repetition by death to death, right? Um, so yeah, whatever few interests that I have, I try to do them consistently, as consistently as I can with my work schedule and the full-time job. Um, so I would say that's one thing. The other thing is, really consuming stuff deliberately. I feel like it's easy to kind of go on a, and again, I'm trying to be conscious about this. It's easier said than done. Um, we sometimes go a whole 10 days or 15 days just doing this binge fest and just zoning out and completely kind of zombieing out after you see stuff. But I think I keep coming back to this concept of like consume but also create, right? So say you've seen a fitness video and you're really inspired by it, actually do the video, like actually take action on that aspect. And even say if you love watching shows, you love Netflix, you've seen all of it, what do you think about the show? Did you like the screenplay writing? Did you enjoy the direction? Did you like the cinematography? I don't know, do something like, think about what you think about it, right? Or the concepts that you've seen in the show. And again, you don't have to be crazily like trying to be productive about everything, but that's just my personality. I'm just someone who tries to overanalyze and be productive with everything that I do, which again, my husband finds very annoying, and so do my close friends, because they're like, dude, you don't have to be productive all the time, which is also a double-edged sword, right? Which is why I end up doing so many things, even though they're not like my full-time job. But yeah, like you can, like if that's something you are excited about doing, incorporate into your daily habits, right? Having that sort of ritual, having that daily one thing that you do every day, then builds to something that you do for the rest of your life, right? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I know that was a very long-winded, windy sort of answer to, I don't even know
No,
what
but
the...
actually it is fun. I mean, I got everything you said. I mean, it was a good insight. And actually, it's very fun and exciting to see. Like, we have a lot of books, but I just saw the other day you pinned down 7 lessons you learned from that book,
Viktor
Man
Frankl.
Search
Yeah,
for
yeah,
Meaning. Like,
yeah.
yeah, Viktor Frankl's book. So it's like the book is out there, but most of the people won't read it. I mean, many people wouldn't have read it so far. So it's like you created it in such a way, like it's very catchy and it's very exciting to see that. And it's just 7 good images, and people can just look at it and learn from it. So I think it's very exciting to see, and I believe it's so much important for us to create.
I'm so glad you think that. Of course, the intention was like, see, again, that's what I'm saying, right? I'm someone who learns better when I'm a visual learner. I look at something, I have to draw it myself. I have to write it down. I used to take like extensive notes and all of that. So for me, when I read a book, unless I synthesize it, unless I figure out, okay, these were the 7 things that I thought were fantastic about this book, they won't be ingrained in my life forever, right? I mean, because otherwise we read so many books.
Even for people who are seeing your creations, I mean, it's good for even for us. I mean, it's
That's
so
awesome
good.
to know. That's what I was gonna say. It's inspiring to hear that you think it was fun, or that worth your 2 to 3 seconds that you see on your feed, right? Because
No,
again,
it is because
awesome.
Yeah, and the way you do it is like it's very easy for us to go through it. I mean, it's very easy.
Thank you. Thanks for that feedback. Really appreciate it.